Hello. Today I am going to talk to you about mental health issues being faced by Latinx students. Adolescence can be a rough time for all groups, but Latinx youth show higher levels of depression and suicidal thoughts than other groups. Numerous studies have shown this. This study is by the Center for Disease Control in 2007, and they found that Latinx youth by 10% more felt sad or hopeless, 10% more than the white group, at a rate of 36 to 26%. Despite this well-documented disparity, little is known about why Latinx youth are particularly susceptible to depression. There have been different studies trying to answer this question, mostly on more recently immigrated families. They have found differing and sometimes conflicting results. So I'll present to you some of their views and you can decide for yourselves. Studies have shown that different kinds of stressors have an impact on the mental health of Latinx adolescents. These stressors include migration and environmental stressors. Migration stressors include separation from family, suddenly having very little contact with whomever raised them in their home country, language barriers, exposure to traumatic events during migration, such as robbery or injury. Immigrants who are crossing into the U.S. illegally are in a very vulnerable situation. Discrimination is another stressor, loss of social status in the new country, changes in family rules and roles in the new country, involuntary migration, when the parents decided to immigrate and the children had to go along with it, and finally undocumented status is a big stressor. Environmental stressors include living in high crime areas in the new country, living in lower income areas, crowded housing, and for example, being powerless to face landlord problems. Other studies have shown that cultural change brought about by immigration can impact families. Acculturation, the acquisition of cultural elements of the dominant U.S. culture. Acculturation can have positive and negative effects on the child's mental health. It can increase immigrant youth's capacities to navigate social systems in the U.S., but it may alienate foreign-born Latino youth from their parents and ethnic communities, and consequently increase their risk for depression or anxiety. Some studies have found the risk for depression increases as Latinx youth acculturate to U.S. society. Acculturation can divide the generations in a family. A gap between parents and their children can lead to lower family cohesion, as children actively challenge the traditional beliefs and cultural values of their immigrant parents. The gap can lead to family stress. More acculturated adolescents desire social outlets external to the family. It can lead to a decrease in effective parenting and an increase in risky behaviors such as substance use. Acculturation can put pressure on the acculturated children. Roles in the family are reversed as the children assume more responsibilities vital to the family, such as English language translation. And the children of immigrant families need to be experts in both cultures. In their country of origin, they're criticized for forgetting their birth culture. And here in the United States, they're also criticized for being too foreign. Latinx girls have been found to experience higher levels of depressive symptoms compared to Latinx boys. While 20% of adolescents globally report mental health problems, 40% of Latinx females report these problems. Lower family cohesion brought by acculturation is seen by some to hit girls harder than boys, as girls are less independent and thus more connected with the family. And since the girls are hit more severely by this, the theory is that they are experiencing more depression. Studies have also shown a discrepancy in gender roles between parents and children. A gender role discrepancy is when there are parental expectations of traditional roles from which the child deviates. Two of the strong gender role beliefs in the Latino culture are the machismo and the Marianismo. Marianismo, for the women, is the belief that women should wait until after marriage to have sex and that they should focus on becoming good mothers and faithful wives. The machismo belief is gender role is that men shouldn't show weakness, they should always appear strong, they shouldn't cry, for example. Compared to boys, Latina adolescents reported greater differences in traditional gender role beliefs between themselves and their parents and higher levels of depression. But research suggests that family dysfunction also contributes significantly to the risk of depression in boys and girls. Another problem is that Latino families are often hesitant to seek mental health services. Even though high rates of mental health illnesses exist in Latino youth, they are less likely than any other group to receive clinical or school-based treatment and to receive medication when services are sought. They are more likely to be seen by a primary care provider rather than a specialist. Now, the stigma of mental illness in the Latino community is a big problem. In order to combat the stigma of mental illness in this community, we must do a better job educating Latinx parents on what are the specific roles of mental health professionals and provide education both at the primary care setting and the school setting. Since parents are often very busy, this convenience by providing it at the school setting will be helpful in providing these mental health services. School has also been identified as a big source of stress. Latino students encounter discrimination at school. Sometimes they are not being understood by administration or teachers, and school can have a violent atmosphere. This source of stress can clearly affect their mental health. Another issue is the stereotypes that Latinx people in the United States face. These stereotypes include the Latin bombshell, like the Modern Family actress Sofia Vergara. It can be seen in the caricatures in film or cartoons. For example, the Speedy Gonzales, the heavy Mexican accent character. And finally, Latinx cultures are actually very diverse. They're not just Mexican. It's usually assumed that if somebody looks Latino in California, in Southern California, that they're Mexican. But actually, people come from all over Latin America. They immigrate here. For example, this slide shows 11 different Spanish words for a drinking straw. For example, in Cuba, it's called the absorbente. In Argentina, it's the pajita. In Puerto Rico, it's the sorbeto. In Mexico, it's the popote. So the cultures are very diverse linguistically and also in other ways. Well, thank you very much for watching my presentation on mental health issues in the Latinx adolescent community.